You know, back when Rick and the artists were still kind of figuring it all out, was the drive-by exhibit. Of course, you'll learn about all of this on the Third Ward Texas documentary. So what they did is this first set of houses, they invited artists to paint the boards that were covering the windows, like before they had fixed up each of the spaces.
And he looked this direction. This was totally overgrown, and you couldn't even tell how many houses there were. This building didn't have a roof, and this was a deserted building. These were mostly deserted, although there were some drug addicts and prostitutes living in here. But there were pathways through. I mean, and Rick was studying at that time with John Biggers, and Rick's thoughts were, John Biggers celebrates the whole idea of the shotgun community and all of the things that it means. And so Rick's thoughts were, no, we don't want to tear this down. He began to move from, at that point he had an installation, a social justice art installation on a basketball court over here.
At the Shape Center. At
the Shape Center. And so he began to move away from the idea of creating, objects and installations and into the idea of social sculpture, especially after a high school student said, well, it's great that you show us all this stuff when he was over here, but what are you going to do about it?
House right now, which shows the original walls of this space. She's illustrating the 7 deadly sins through dogs. So each one is a different sin. You can go around the house and see it. Sorry. She's okay. Living on.
Yeah, no, that's another one.
So that's the one that he built during an installation that was created here that I mentioned earlier. Ellie Arce created this, and so they formed the Greenhouse Collective, and then she left. But why?
To come out with the .357 Magnum gun at 87 years old and hold it up, and she would fire it to get rid of these people. You know, she'd say, "Get out!" You know. So when we started, she was so happy. She used to give us lunch money. We plugged our electricity into her house. She gave us water. She lived to be 94. And then she tried to leave us her house, and that got complicated. But we're actually working on getting this piece of land. Right, we're going to build a memorial. Build this. The Rice students are amazing because they're working with the Menil Collection on a master plan right now, doing major design work for the Menil Collection. So the students at Rice are phenomenal. So they built this house, and then in 2003 we built the first 8 units. And these are 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Each time we built, we learned how to make them more green. We learned how to, we don't have the final group that we built, which is a mile away from here, is not LEED certified, but it's STAR certified. So each time we got better at it.
Like sweeping and cleaning, and he'll cut it stuff with like his with just a knife. And actually, one of the interesting things about the Third Ward is that it also has like there are very wealthy people that live, or there were like some of the Jews that lived here throughout the the 30s, the 40s, and 50s were as wealthy as as other whites, but they weren't allowed to live in the white neighborhoods. So
the Jews were segregated as well?
Yeah, they were segregated as well.
I didn't know that.
And so they built their houses, some of them much larger than the houses that were in the white area, and but then they moved out when blacks start moving in, and so now there's a whole like housing area with blacks that are these bigger,
affluent.
Yeah. Of the blacks that are mostly, I guess, would be in. Most of them would be practicing law, which a lot of that would have to be for the the oil companies, or I mean the law firms, big law firms here all survive off of representing oil companies and stuff.
Right.
And there's a big medical presence here. I mean, there's a big medical complex here. So these are,
wow,
fairly
they're like mansions,
larger.
but there's a few that are boarded up.
Yeah. And then, but these are not even the larger ones. If we keep going further, they get like bigger and bigger.
Would people build their own house then? Because they're not all. In England we have a lot of estates that are built by private companies, but they all look and they all look the same. But these are all very individual.
Yeah, but these would have all been built like most of these houses were probably built in the maybe 1920s,
Right.
the 30s, and you know, and most of these things are probably, you know, they're not like, it's not like architecture driven. I mean, they're definitely development driven,
Right.
where, you know, a developer would just kind of maybe see, would, you know, just have standard designs, and they would just modify them a little bit, because, you know,
Okay.
a lot of these houses are a lot alike.
Just fetch then. Are they expensive or?
They've become expensive in the last 10 years, but before they were fairly
And
inexpensive.
the
Okay,
amount
so
of empty ones, is that because
Huh?
of the amount of empty ones that there are? It's a lot of empty ones. Is that because of the 2007 crash?
no, I mean, many of them were empty before.
So what's the value of the properties in roughly?
It's gone up tremendously, so it's kind of hard to say. But for instance, Paul, you guys are staying in my house.
Lanes?
Yeah.
Oh my
But
God.
it includes a number of different kinds. We have several kinds of lanes, right, that go. There's what we call the
Bus lane.
the frontage road. It's
You
a
can
whole
drive on
separate
it there.
road, though, which is there's not on this one, but I'll show you on the other one. But but the same as with this one.